Welcome to my show. Welcome to my channel. This is the Hermetic Arts. A lot of stuff going on today. So I'm just going to kind of break this down a little bit for people who don't understand. This is the spiritual threshold between realms. On Turtle Island, people can put it in the category of Atlantis and Lemuria or Pangea, and whatever it be. Go back into millions and millions of years ago and just travel through time into today. But there's a lot of stuff that's been hidden from people, and real history hasn't been told to the people, and everything is cataclysms and so forth. So there's a lot of ley lines, a lot of pressure points on this map here, and I'll break it down a little bit. So we're just going to get into. We'll start in Bermuda Triangle, because that's a place a lot of people don't understand. It's been around for a long time, but so the Bermuda Triangle connects to New Zealand in a frequency point. It's a porthole to New Zealand, and so that's what the Bermuda Triangle is. You get into the Acadian line that you're seeing here that runs from Mexico up the East Coast. This is a line of a shield, iron shield. You got mercury that used to flow, that mercury that does flow under Mother Earth, through the veins of Mother Earth, and so forth. There used to be the temples. You have the one in Mexico there, but there used to be Aztec, Inca, and whatever. Traveling up the East Coast, you get into the Hopewell tribes, and everything like this. And so then you get up into Maine and so forth, and you get up into Greenland, you get up into Iceland. There's a lot of hidden ancient history, so it's difficult to understand if you don't have a map and you don't have this here, because you have all this stuff on the East Coast. You get into New York, Philadelphia, DC, all this stuff to the east of spiritual manipulation and ley lines and sacrifice and all this death and destruction, and the 13 colonies. The 13 colonies reflect the 13th missing moon, because this line here reflects the poles, the alignment of the 3 poles and so forth. But you get into the migration of these ones they call the White Devil and the White Doe, and what they did over hundreds of years of DNA manipulation and removing the darker skin from the people and turning them white. So that is a DNA manipulation, and they were sent out to bring havoc and destruction and chaos, because they became possessed to kill their own people, pretty much. But so you have different levels of creating, and you get the incubator babies, and there's all kinds of stuff, and then the destruction of and the sacrificing of all the Native Americans. But there's been blood spilled all around Mother Earth in the universe for a long time. But all this stuff needed to be cleaned up and purged. Mother Earth needed to be cleaned up and purged of the darkness and the sacrifice blood that was spilled on her, so she can ascend, and so the children and the animals and everyone can ascend back into the higher realms. And so this is the Gnosis, this is the Logos, and the information. 2 worlds, living 2 worlds side by side is really what it is, where you have the creation of this country in this timeline through Philadelphia and Philadelphia being Delphi and being the Church of Philadelphia, and how this ley line is attached to the Middle East and everything over there, in certain ways of ancient history, but the energy of biblical times and this whole thing in the Middle East comes through Philadelphia because it's a porthole. So what was attempted here and what happened over these hundreds of years, and people talking about Pluto 1776, it's just it's a code. It's 1776 is actually 777. When you take the, you know, gotta know your numerical codes. But when they came, they came into the Gulf of Mexico. They came through Chesapeake Bay and DC and Carolinas and the whole East Coast of attempting to get into, go west. Because if you travel west, you get into the where they found gold. You get into the El Dorado, but it's more than just the El Dorado, because it is an inner frequency. It is the Emerald Triangle, and then you get up into Alaska, because you can see here where the Dragon Line crosses, and you can get into these ley lines of the Blue Kachina, where the Blue Kachina came and destroyed everything and wiped everything out because of the manipulation and the wars and having to protect the porthole. Because if you look on someone's back, someone had a tattoo of the Finger Lakes, and this whole thing with Orion and the Pleiadians and the Finger Lakes being a porthole, the Susquehanna River being the first river, the first river that was created. So where's the first piece of land, and all this stuff? Because the Finger Lakes align with the porthole to the Pleiadians. It's like where the water, spiritual water, comes out of Hyperborealis. And so you have them coming and following the ley lines, the invisible ley lines, or we'll just say they were able to see portholes. People back in the day, the fallen ones of trying to get back into heaven, because the real promised land is America. It's not over there in the Middle East. That's the manipulation of the people, and everything is across the pond, and and everything like that. So, but getting into the tribes and the giants, and people know the Serpent Mound, but these Appalachian Mountains are the same stone as Stonehenge. They're the same stone as Australia. The blue stone, the Blue Mountains, they vibrate in a frequency of giants and ancient water, and it has the memory of the ancient sentinels and the ancient water, because we're going back to a time that before you were born. So the fairy tale of the Sasquatch, the fairy tale of all this stuff, of the sentinels on the threshold, it's all real. People can talk about the Watchers and the Watchers falling, but those who have fallen, who were destroyed, and whatever was left is separated, and outside of Mother Earth in a spiritual sense. That's the part of an individual person protecting oneself and coming up into being protected by Christ, and the Iron Shield, and the circle of protection, and being conscious of what's going on, but we get into this stuff, and you see that when they came, they didn't really travel the 33rd parallel, or they didn't travel along the Bible Belt in a spiritual sense. They just planted churches, mega churches, and down there, especially in like Dallas and stuff. And it's kind of interesting. Texas is on the map, spiritually in a sense, but the Northeast is really the hot spot at this moment with the Sasquatch and the vibration of the Emerald Triangle, and coming through this higher frequencies of understanding what's on Turtle Island, because there's around Florida, you're getting into the Gulf of Mexico, you're getting into the Great Lakes, and there are the crystal pyramids, and there are the things, under the water, but it's also under the land. It's all the elements and so forth. But there is that rainbow. There is a rainbow that no one can see. That comes out of the Great Lakes, and it comes out of the Gulf of Mexico, that comes over the Mississippi, because that is the threshold from the east to the west. But it's deeper than anyone could ever imagine, but it's just inner sight that I have, inner sight that I've gained over these years, because I've been initiated into things that a lot of people haven't, into in my studies and so forth. But this is why you see why they came to the Mayans, they came to the east coast of America, because they were coming, there's only one porthole. So when you're looking at, say, the tree fell to the east and fell out of time and created the Middle East. It created that timeline. It doesn't matter what you think of Samaria or whatever, all that stuff. There's stuff that is within yourself, and then there's stuff outside of you. So if you're looking at yourself as being the temple, as they say, because what's across the pond is false, is all the false idol. So false religion, false spiritual religion, the hijacking of everything from the Catholic Church to fake Christians, fake Jews, and hijacking the word Israel, when we know that Israel is a number, it's a tribe, it's the people, not a location. And that's these ones who came out of Egypt, they stole everything, from blueprints, they stole the magic, they stole all the Hermetic teachings, when it comes to having the sacred geometry to build temples. That's the part when you're looking at these ones, King Solomon and David and so forth. There's a manipulation of where, like, the ones on Earth, like Mayas, the Mayans being the timekeepers, they had the blueprints. They were keepers of time because they were given authority over all other tribes, to be the keepers. Other tribes didn't have the keys. So I kind of lost my train of thought, but sticking with the giants, sticking with these ones, we have returned back to the Mayan time. So the giants, the sentinels, and these go back to Scotland, Ireland, original tribes. It all depends on who you are, where you come from. But the elders, the elders knew, and interacted with them. And then the same thing with the space beings, because in true reality, it is the sentinels who are flying around in ships. It is the sentinels who are flying around on backs of dragons. You want to call it a fairy tale, you know, people are looking at UFOs. You know, the wool has been pulled over people's eyes to believe one thing over the other. And that's the same thing with the dragons and versus dinosaurs. They told you they were dinosaurs. Before that, they were dragons. So who are the Sasquatch? The Sasquatch are the bloodline of Adam. There's no more fucking around here. So we're taking it back to the beginning. Have a good day.